by Linux Foundation AI and Data. We are here at our Tech Talk for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. And today we have an awesome topic. Quick about myself, I'm Vinny Jaiswal, the chair of Technical Advisory Board at Linux Foundation AI and Data. We have these Tech Talks scheduled for bi-weekly on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So for those who are joining from US or anywhere in the world, uh, good morning, good evening, wherever you are joining from. So today with me, we have Unity Catalog project team. So joining me in the discussion today is Michelle Leon and Ramesh Chandra from product and engineering teams at Databricks. So how about we have a quick round of introductions from our guest speakers today. So Michelle, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle. I'm a product manager here at Databricks, and I've been working on open sourcing Unity Catalog with Ramesh and the rest of our wonderful team. And I'm based in San Francisco, so it's morning over here. And then Ramesh.
Hey everyone, I'm Ramesh Chandra. I'm a software engineer at Databricks. I've been working on Unity Catalog, both on the Databricks Unity Catalog as well as open sourcing Unity Catalog. I'm also based off of the Bay Area, specifically in the Mountain View area.
Amazing. Well, this is awesome because, at Databricks, we have launched several open source projects. So it always starts with open source at Databricks. So I personally really liked having Unity Catalog on the Tech Talks today. So how about we start off with the project introduction, explaining what this open source project is, how it came together over the years, and why is it needed now? So yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, maybe I can take that. This is a broad and expansive question. So maybe I'll start off with maybe leading off with first what is a catalog and why it's important, which is that what a catalog at its core it manages a bunch of metadata about your assets. Specifically, I think the leading open catalog standard right now is like the Hive Metastore catalog standard, which originated, when I say metadata, this is saying, okay, what are the, what's the file path to where all the files that represent your table, where is it stored? Or maybe what's the schema of that table or the name or something like that. And so that's kind of how this concept of like a technical catalog originated. And then over time, and then like really actually this is like a core problem that we sort of encountered and have been pioneers of here at Databricks, is like over time, we saw that catalog is taking on like a much larger and larger role beyond just this like table metadata management. And now it's taking on a role in governance and maybe like complex transaction management. We also see that it's really important to bring data and AI assets together. So going beyond just tabular assets, and also what about like your images or your PDFs, or you have a bunch of like files, or maybe your ML models, you want to manage metadata about that, and you want to also track that lineage with the data sets and tables and those files that you were using and stuff like that when you're maybe training your like Gen AI models and stuff like that. And so catalogs have really evolved since, say, like a decade ago. And then Unity Catalog, we've been working on that here at Databricks for the past several years with over like 10,000 customers in production. And then this past summer, this is what I think we've been really excited about, is realizing that there is not this open standard in the market that's out there for a data and AI catalog. And so we took the leap, actually, Matej, live on stage at Data and AI Summit. I think Vinny, maybe you were there, right? It was a very cool moment. He actually went live with the open sourcing Unity Catalog in the GitHub repo.
It was crazy moment, Michelle, because in the morning we were at the Linux Foundation getting it approved by the TAC committee, and 3 hours later, Matera announces it. It was like so much rushed, not rushed, but it was like a lot of immediate things that were happening that morning.
Oh, there was a lot.
Cool.
There was a lot. It was very nerve-wracking backstage, but we pulled it off somehow. Yeah.
Yes, it worked out very great. Yeah. And it's cool that we saw Button hit by Mate live on the stage when he open sourced it. So yeah, that was all very cool to watch.
I know. Yeah,
Oh,
and then
cool.
that's also.
So
Oh yeah, what were you gonna say?
yeah, and also like this Unity catalog, as you mentioned, it has been a long many years in the making because of the emergence of a lot of demands from the open source community as well as the Databricks customers. And even now, like there is a lot of demand on how we can centralize the cataloging, because there is a lot of complexity. First there are a lot of tools, and then you have products. So how do you juggle all that while being compliant, bringing governance together? So what other challenges would you like to add, which has evolved from past and now to the current applications?
Yeah. So I think something else that I touched on two things, which is the first is that we saw that there was a need for unified governance for data and AI. And then I think the second thing, so I'll talk about that in a second, and then Ramesh, you should also chime in too, but because you were there for a lot of this as it was evolving. But then the second thing I think we want to talk about is around how, as catalogs have taken an increasingly important role, especially in like modern storage formats, we've seen that there's a need for a multi-format catalog as well. So supporting not just beyond like a single table format, but supporting many different formats, because in the real world, many customers and many organizations, many data platform teams, they'll actually be supporting not just Delta Lake and Iceberg, but also like Parquet, CSV, ORC, like all of these different file formats, and you want to make sure that all of those are governed with a single standard. And so those are the two things that I think are really the key challenges at Unity Catalogs. We've been really thinking deeply about how to solve those in a really elegant way, and then bring that as an open standard to the community, and working with folks in the community. We have a lot of really great, for example, Delta Lake and Iceberg folks that are involved. Yeah, Ramesh, what were you gonna say?
And it related to that, like, and I think one of the things that has also been happening, I think Michelle mentioned this before, is that the catalog is also becoming the source of truth for the metadata, right? So previously, like there was the shift between Hive Metastore having you go to Hive Metastore for metadata, and then all your tables were Parquet. And as you kind of evolved into this ACID compliant like table formats like Delta and Iceberg, there was a shift towards like making storage the source of truth for metadata. And now I think we are realizing also, we realize that there is value in making the catalog the source of truth, with transactions being like coordinated by the catalog, because things like multi-table transactions and multi-statement transactions cannot be done purely from a storage perspective. They would require a catalog as a coordinator. So there's a lot of like the importance of catalogs over time has increased, even from the time when we started like 3 years ago. We've like seen a lot of reasons why catalog is super important for a data platform.
Yes, definitely. So with that, let's focus on some of the technical deep dives of the project itself. Why don't we share some of the nitty-gritty details on technical architecture, like what exactly Unity Catalog does and what does it look like? Michelle, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a good diagram for this. Actually, maybe even before jumping into that, while I pull up the slides, I think I'll add on that this is maybe even just tying it back, like what Ramesh was saying about how catalogs are becoming like the source of truth for like things for your data lakehouse, more so than like storage being the source of truth. I think that's another big reason why we decided to open source Unity Catalog, is because we want to make sure that like, as it becomes a source of truth, it's very important that it's open. At Databricks, open source, it's in our DNA, right? So Delta Lake, Spark, and then now Unity Catalog, you want to make sure that customers and any user out there really can feel like they can build like a fully open data lakehouse. And so that's, I think, a big motivator as well. Okay, now I'm going to go share my screen.
Yeah, and the way we are doing it, like, well, Michelle is bringing up, and the way we are doing it is, we know, like as Michelle said, we have 10,000 plus customers using UC. So we're looking at all these features that customers are predominantly using and bringing them into open source, because those are the features that are like, that are the most requested, most valuable to our customers, right? So when you see our like roadmap, the roadmap is generally like tied to like, the value that the features bring in to our existing customers that we have seen in our customer base.
Yep, absolutely. So speaking of that, maybe I'll dive a little bit into, or at least this is our sort of like architecture vision, or architecture diagrams, sorry, I should say, for a Unity catalog, and then how it enables this open lakehouse vision that I just talked a little bit about. So I guess at its heart, this is like Unity catalog. It implements both the native Unity REST APIs, which is like that open standard for data and AI, governance and metadata management, and then also implements the Iceberg REST catalog API. And then in the future, we also want to add, this is like in our upcoming future roadmap, also want to implement like Delta sharing, another open protocol for data sharing. And so one of the things that I really want to emphasize is that Unity catalog, I mentioned that it's like multi-format support, right? So Iceberg and Delta and Parquet, JSON, CSV. And then we also believe in enabling the broadest interoperability. And so by embracing all these different open standards, that's how you're actually able to tap into the like the richest and most broad ecosystem of engines, of platforms, of different AI tools. And so one of the things that we did actually when we open sourced Unity catalog and really brought this to the community is that we actually brought along a bunch of collaborators from these different engines or AI platforms, working with major cloud platforms, because we believe that, like, the standard is only as good as how widely adopted it is. And so Unity Catalog, by embracing all these different open standards, is able to give access to this really broad ecosystem. And then I think the other thing to mention here is that Unity Catalog, it's not just tables. It also manages your objects, like in volumes, which is what the API is called, or the asset's called. So this can be things like images, maybe like audio files, PDFs, and then also manages functions, so like SQL and Python functions, which you can use to either like standardize things, like, how do you calculate like what fiscal quarter it is for your like business platform, or can also codify things like maybe Python functions that your Gen AI agents can call. And so all of those also you can manage with Unity Catalog and register metadata about that. And then something else that we're really excited about as well, and Ramesh is going to talk about that in our upcoming roadmap, is that we're adding models, ML model support as well. And so with this management of all of the different data and AI assets, and then multi-format support, and then by embracing open standards, like this is like our vision for how Unity Catalog can enable like a truly open lakehouse, where you're able to have like this single catalog that can like view across and create this sort of single pane of glass to view and manage and govern across your entire data and AI estate. So that's a little bit more about like the architecture deep dive, and then we can also talk more about the different components of this as well when we dive in. And then Ramesh, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think you covered it. This is good. This is good as a high level architecture.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think, Michelle, can you go back to the slide?
Yeah.
I think a lot of motivation, a lot of motivation, I think it is for Unity Catalog comes from, as you mentioned, Lakehouse Vision. So why there is a lake house is because it's a end to end kind of like a playground for data scientists, data engineers, and people who are working with AI applications. So that's where multi-format comes in, and they require, like for example, running machine learning workloads require different types of support for different formats, plus engineering and a lot of like jobs that you orchestrate. I think a lot of pieces play together to create this Unity catalog, and that's why I just wanted to add a little bit of that, why we care about a unified, um, why we are seeing a lot of layers in this architecture. So just wanted to add that call out. Cool. So with that, I think let's dive into Ramesh. Would you like to add anything else in the technical side of the Unity catalog?
Yeah, I think Michelle covered the high level architecture in terms of how we're layering it and how we are thinking about bringing in all the data and AI assets, along with like supporting multiple open standards to kind of like for broad interoperability, right? So I think that covers the vision that we're going for.
Awesome, awesome. So with that, I think I'm curious, like what are some of the features that users are using, maybe in production application, or maybe like some of the some of the most pressing functionalities that Unity Catalog has solved for the community.
Ramesh, do you want to talk about credential vending maybe?
Yeah, I can talk.
Yeah.
I can. Maybe this is maybe a good time to jump into what's coming in the
Yeah.
upcoming release. So we're excited about the point two release that's coming up. So let me try to. Let me share my screen. And
Sure.
Yeah. While you're pulling up the screen, I think as context, Vinny, to your question about, okay, well, what are the problems that we're seeing, and what are the key challenges that we're solving? I think in the point two release, so the point one initial release started with that core set of APIs. And then what we're really excited about is that putting point two release is addressing like a lot of those top requested features and functionality, and then the core problem statements that we're seeing. And so we're really and then this is just around the corner, so Ramesh is going to talk a little bit more about it.
yeah, so the as I said, we are excited about the functionality that's coming up in the point two release. This is targeted for this month. Will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. So on the governance side, as you know, governance is like a core capability of Unity Catalog. This is a huge value that UC brings over existing catalogs. And on the governance side, we have some foundational aspects that are coming in the point two release. This includes credential vending, identity, authentication, authorization. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a bit. And then on the AI assets, we have support for ML models that's coming up. And for engine client integration, we have Spark integration, and also integration with other engines like DuckDB, Daft, StarRocks, PuppyGraph, SpiceAI. All of this is being worked on right now. And we have improved documentation, and also the point release is going to come with a catalog UI. Right. So I'll maybe I can take us a bit of time to jump into some of these things and do a technical deep dive in some of the governance and aspects of it. So so let's start with credential vending. So what is credential vending? Credential vending is a capability of a catalog to grant access to storage to an engine that is going to be performing some processing using that storage. And this is done using a time-limited downscoped storage credential that is generated on demand, and it is scoped down to the storage that is needed for a single higher-level object. So, for example, the engine is, let's say, trying to access a particular table that has that's stored in a path, an S3, path to my table. So the catalog would then generate a credential that is scoped down to just that table, that particular path, and give it back to the engine, and the engine will be able to use it to access storage. Right. So this is This is at a high level what credential vending is about. And credential vending is builds on the downscoping mechanisms that all cloud vendors today support, cloud storage providers already support. So on the AWS side, this would be the session tokens that AWS S3 supports. On Azure, it would use the delegation SAS credentials and so on. Right. So this is this is an important capability because it's a foundational building block for higher level governance. So on top of this, you can implement higher level access policies like grants and even advanced policies like ABAC and RBAC and so on. So this helps us scale access management, and which is very, very important in modern enterprises, right? So on the point to release, we'll have what's coming up is we'll have credential vending support on all the major clouds on AWS, Azure, and GCP, and we'll support it for all the we'll support it for like different data and AI assets, including tables, volumes and models, right? So with this context, maybe just to kind of like understand a bit deeper why credential vending is important, let's look at like how access control was before credential vending was there as part of the catalog. So let's take an example. So they say a user Alice runs a query select star from a table foo on an engine like Spark, right? So Spark would then have to gather data from a couple of places. It needs to get metadata from a catalog like Hive Metastore, and then it needs to go get the data for the table from cloud storage. The metadata itself tells the engine where to fetch the data from, right? So it would tell like, it's the path for the table, and the engine uses that path to fetch the table from cloud storage. So it needs to get, for the engine to be able to perform this processing, it needs to get access to both the metadata and the data. So it needs, so typically what happens is today the access to the metadata is pretty broad. So the engine gets complete access to the Hive Metastore. And for access to the data itself, it is generally done using the cloud storage access policies. So if on S3, for example, if Alice has access to table 1 and table 2, the administrator will generate an instance profile. He'll define an instance profile policy that gives access to these files corresponding to table 1 and table 2, and then give the engine access to that instance profile, right? So this is how governance was done before credential vending, and it's done at the cloud storage policies level. And so this is, I mean, the model of works okay for a small organization if you have like a few number of users and a few objects, but it breaks down as you add, you scale to thousands of users and hundreds of thousands of objects, because now the administrator has to think about the higher level access entitlements that the user has, map them down to the corresponding storage access policies, and define the storage access policies. So they need to, for example, the administrator needs to understand that Alice has access to table 1 and table 2, Eve has access to table N, and then correspondingly create the instance profiles and attach them to the engines that Alice and Eve are using. And so this becomes very complicated for an administrator of a large organization. And moreover, as these policies are not static; they change. As like if Alice if Alice loses access to table 2, then the administrator will now have to go back and redo this mapping. Has to understand what instance profiles have changed and go update them. So overall, this becomes a pretty big problem, and this is where credential vending comes in, right? So with credential vending, what happens is that the catalog is now responsible for not just the metadata, but metadata and governance, right? So only the catalog has permanent storage access. It has access to all of the data, and engine is only granted access on a just-in-time basis. So going back to the previous example, if Alice wants to run a query on table 2, the engine would then go ask the catalog for both the metadata as well as a credential to go get access to the cloud storage for table 2. So catalog would then can look up the access policies, make sure that Alice has access to table 2, and only then return the metadata and a credential to access table 2. This credential is time limited, so the access engine gets only access for a limited amount of time. So this becomes a very powerful building block on top of which you can build higher level policies. Note that I didn't like mention what this access policies box looks like, right? So you can have that access policies block be just simple grants. It could be more advanced policies like RBAC, or it could be even policies that are dynamic, like attribute based access control. So all of those can be supported on top of this building block. That's why credential vending becomes like a very important foundational building block for governance. And moreover, this is not just for tables. It can be used as a building block for access control beyond tables. When UC is not a catalog for tables, it's a catalog for files and other data and AI assets like models. And so this credential vending becomes a building block for governance of all of those other assets. And um, since UC also supports Iceberg REST catalog, the credential vending support that's coming in point 2 can also support the Iceberg REST catalog credential vending. So hopefully that gives you a sense of like why credential vending is so important as a building block for governance, and how UC uses this to build higher level access policies on top of credential vending, and how it supports governance for all of the assets that are inside UC. So the other big governance building block that is coming in point 2 is identity authentication and authorization. So for identity, we would have we're going to have scheme support for local user management, and the requests are themselves authenticated using the using bearer tokens. And there'll also be support for authenticating with external IDPs like Google and Okta, using OAuth token exchange. So for example, you could get an identity token from Google and exchange it for a UC access token using this token exchange flow, and use that for performing actions against UC. So that's with respect to identity and authentication. On authorization side, we will have object level grants, which are similar to SQL grants, and this lays the foundation for permission management. We'll start with coarse-grained privileges at the catalog level, and then extend it to other privileges, more fine-grained privileges in the future.
And Ramesh, I would like to quickly ask you, this identity, the SCIM support, is that available? Is that going to be available for open source as well?
Yes, this is all of the stuff that I'm talking about is in open source. This is coming in the point
I
2
see.
release of open source.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
So yeah,
please go
this
ahead.
would
Yeah.
be the so this is coming up in the September timeframe. All of this will be the foundational components that we are going to be building, and of course it will evolve. We'll do a lot more coming in the future in point 3 and beyond releases. But these we think are like building blocks that are necessary for UC to be a catalog that can be used and by customers. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, so that's with respect to governance. As Michelle already mentioned, right? So we are looking at UC as beyond tables. It supports like all data and AI assets. And one of the assets that are coming in point 2 is model support in UC. So just as tables are table abstraction is basically defines a standard format on top of like files in storage, like delta tables and iceberg tables. A model is also a model defines a standard format for packaging model artifacts. So these come in different flavors, like PyTorch model or a TensorFlow model or LangChain model. And the model storage is a directory that contains the model artifacts and the metadata for the model. It defines the model flavor, and it can be interpreted and used by a variety of downstream tools like MLflow, right? And UC provides a model registry interface for full model lifecycle management. and it's built on two abstractions. There's a registered model abstraction and a model version. A model version uh, captures a single version of a model, and a registered model is the entire model across multiple model versions. UC will have governance on models. It will have the same permission authorization model authorization on top of models as well. And this all of this is again built on the temporary credential vending on that vents out temporary credentials for model storage. So in point two, we will have the register model and model version support. We'll have temporary credential vending on all the clouds, and we'll also have ML flow client support.
Does
So
UC
that's
also have, so Ramesh, does
yeah.
UC also have support for graph DBs?
Um, so we are working with PuppyGraph as an engine that would support graph queries on top of UC. So that we're working on a PuppyGraph UC integration. So
Oh,
that's
the one integration you showed
yeah,
before. Okay,
yeah.
got it.
So on the client integrations, we have Spark integration that's coming up. So we'll have a Spark connector in point two that would do the UC catalog integration. It would allow performing commands on databases, schemas, and tables. It'll also integrate with the table credential vending. So no default storage credentials needed on Spark. It'll get the correct credentials per table on demand. And invoking Spark is pretty straightforward. You have to give the define the UC catalog in the Spark cons and specify the UC catalog endpoint and the token, the credential to access, the access token to access UC, right? So, and once that's done, then the access to the storage itself is vended out by UC. So that's a summary of all the stuff that's coming up in point two, and there'll be a lot more coming in point three. This is what we have. Exciting stuff that's coming in this month.
Oh, just this month. Oh, wow, that's pretty exciting and very ambitious timeline as well. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, Ramesh. Real quick on these integrations that you showed, are there any resources available? For example, you showed the model integration with ML Flow. If somebody wants to look at it, are there any demo recordings or something that is available that you
Yeah,
can
we
share with
will.
us?
So we have our. So if you go to the Unity catalog page, right, there's a quick start guide for today, which has DuckDB integration, and we will add more to it as we add ML, the models as part of point two. As part of the point two release, we'll have like a quick start guide for using models with ML flow and so on. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Well,
If you have
that
a
was
few
an
minutes,
amazing.
if you have a few minutes, I wanted to kind of like show quickly a Spark demo, if that works, or I could go and like show you because of your question. Maybe I can also show where people can see the current integrations, if that work that helps too.
How about you show a quick demo of Spark and then we can go into that other one later. Yeah.
Okay, let me try sharing my terminal, and this is a very quick demo. Um,
This is exciting. A real live demo.
yeah, so this is work in progress. So I have so this is a checkout of my the current Unity catalog repo from GitHub. I already compiled it, so I'm going to start the UC server on this. So that's the command to start UC. So this is the local Unity catalog that's started up. And so what I've configured here is I've configured this Unity catalog with access to a cloud storage. So this is going back to the credential vetting, right? So we have the catalog configured to talk to cloud storage. It has along with the credentials to talk to cloud storage. And I've created a table in here that is That's on top of the Parquet files inside a cloud storage, right? So I'm going to run a command here to show you the details of the table, right? So I'm running this, and this is the command line that comes along with the comes along with UC, right? So here you see that the table, I've created a table, a catalog called Spark Demo, in which there's a schema called S3, and there's a table called numbers, right? So this is a table that I've already pre-created before to show for the sake of this demo. And this table is stored in this S3 location here, right? So so this is a Parquet table, external table that is on S3, right? So I'm going to go to a different terminal. I'm going to start up Spark, right? And the Spark, this is a Spark build. As you can see, it's a Spark build with the UC connector in it. It's a snapshot build, so that I locally built myself. And I'm running it with the default catalog being the Spark demo that I've shown before. This is the catalog that I created for Spark, and it is pointing to the local host. This is the UC that's running on my machine that I just started. Right, so I start Spark now, and so Spark came up, and now let me run a simple command to make sure that I'll run a show tables command to see that the numbers table that we've seen is in the Spark demo, right? Catalog Spark demo.s3 schema. So remember that I did not start Spark with I did not give access to storage to Spark. So Spark does not have direct access to storage, right? So I'm going to run a command, a select command on the table. So any access that Spark gets here, it should be getting it from temporary credentials that are rented out by UC, right? So the demo shows, just a simple command here, but there's a bunch of stuff happening behind the scenes, like I already mentioned in the slide before, where the Spark actually talks to UC, says, hey, I want to run a query on Spark demo.s3.numbers table. Then UC would get back the metadata as well as a credential to access the cloud location corresponding to this numbers table, and then Spark runs the command, runs the processing to display this, right? So that kind of demonstrates the credential vending that is this is work in progress right now. Hope as I said, we plan to release this over the next coming weeks here.
That's awesome. Why don't we also show the GitHub, Ramesh, if you have it handy, so we can show the locations of the code and binaries.
Yeah, let me bring it up. Okay, so this is the Unity Catalog GitHub repo. If you look at the main README, the main README actually goes through, in addition to explaining what Unity Catalog is, it goes through a quick start here, right? So I'd recommend checking out and going through the quick start. It probably takes 10 minutes for you to run through the quick start. It gives you a good sense of how to use UC and what are the capabilities. And in addition to the command line that comes along with UC, the quick start also shows how to use DuckDB to do a query against the UC server. And as I said, we will expand. We'll also add Spark and ML models to the quick start once we have that. Once we have them coming out in point2 as part of the point2 release. Right. So some of the interesting directories here that you can explore. So there is the API directory, Unity Catalog /API, which has all the API definitions and the documentation for the APIs. So for example, you have the catalogs API, the functions API, schemas, tables, and the temporary credentials. This is the credential vending API, and the volumes API. Right. So, and then when models come in, we'll also have the models API added to this. So that's one interesting place to explore what the capabilities of Unity Catalog are at the API level, right? And then the main code for the server is in the server directory, right? So if you go in here, you will have like all the server handlers for all the APIs. And as I said, the UC also comes with a client that's in the this client directory. And this is the command line client that you can use to explore. Once you bring up UC, you can explore all the APIs and functionality that UC supports. So for all the functionality we add to the server, we also add the capabilities to the command line. And then there is the connectors directory, which has the Spark connector code here. And another interesting thing that you can look at is the docs directory, where if you look at the integrations, these are the different integrations that are present that UC has. So each of these has documentation on how you can use that integration along with your UC server. Right, so this is an example of DAF integration, and then there's DuckDB, PuppyGraph, etc. So I think that's a good summary. So what I would recommend is trying this out, check out the repo, go through this quick start, and that would give you a good sense of all the capabilities that UC provides. And we will keep adding the quick start as we extending the quick start with additional capabilities that we add to UC in 0.2 and beyond, right?
I'll also do another quick plug too, actually, while we're talking about the different resources and assets to get involved. So this is unitycatalog.io. It's our main website. So you can find the links to GitHub from here, joining the Slack, joining LinkedIn community, and then you can also find our documentation, docs.unitycatalog.io, which is also here, which maybe provides a little bit nicer of navigation experience than going through the directories in the GitHub, although you can always find the source files there. And then I guess while we're at it, let me also
I would just quickly like to add, Michelle, it's amazing website, it was built very quickly, but it is awesome.
It was built very quickly. Here, I'll go back. Look at these the animations,
it's
right?
Just so vibrant, so amazing. Yes, it's just very eye-catching and very good.
The solar system, and then we created the logo just a week before too. Yeah. Anywho, yes, check out the site. We worked very hard on it. Then let's see. I'll also quickly share a few handy Go links. I can actually just share this. I'll just keep these up on the screen so that folks can find how to join the Slack, GitHub, and then the user and dev lists too for the Linux Foundation. Yeah,
that's awesome. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So Unity Catalog currently has a lot of integrations with the current LFAI and data projects too, right? So I just wanted to call that out, as a project of Linux Foundation, AI and data, Unity Catalog is also closely working with the LF ecosystem and constantly adding new features. So it is not just about the using of Unity Catalog, but if you have interesting features that you would like to request, I think Unity Catalog team will support that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, actually, our next community meetup is this upcoming Thursday, and so please join me. We've had the Ageria folks come on also in LFA and data, and then of course we work very closely with Delta Lake. Yeah, so please join the community meetup or join us on GitHub discussions, or create a GitHub issue and stuff like that if there's something that you want to see.
That's awesome. Well, I think because it's such a huge topic and very technical topic, so we already reached to end of our session. But anyways, if community has any questions, I will forward them to you and we can answer them on LinkedIn. Michelle and Ramesh, thank you so much for spending time and giving our viewers a deep dive into Unity Catalog. We really look forward to having more community involvement in the project, and we already see a thriving community of Unity Catalog. It was launched, what, 2 months ago? 3 months ago, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Any closing thoughts you would like to share, Michelle and Ramesh, before we close the call?
I think we covered a good amount, but yeah, I guess I just wanted to say that, this is just the like you said, it's only been a couple months. We've already seen such amazing engagement from like the community. Ramesh has been hard at work building all the things he just talked about. No, I'm just kidding. We have, amazing community, huge team. We didn't even get to talk about the UI, but that's also been out there developing in the open. We've been working with folks in the community on that. And so really excited to continue to see the momentum build around this project as we make Unity Catalog like this really awesome unified data and AI catalog and open standard. So yeah, really excited. And then thank you, Vinny, as well for all of your support.
Yeah, this is just the beginning.
Definitely. Just the beginning. Maybe we
Yeah.
come back in one of the future TAC talks, and you can share more progress.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining, and thank you to our viewers for listening us live. And no worries if you did not join us live. These sessions are recorded and will be available on LinkedIn and YouTube. And of course, if you have any questions while watching this, and if you would like to have any technical demonstration or examples, please share that with us, and we will definitely answer your questions. So thank you. Thank you. And I think we will also post our meetup link from September 5th. So I will have that handy for our users who would like to join that community meetup. Awesome. Well, that covers it. And thank you all. Now we can close the call.
Thank you.
Thank you.